In the middle of that crowded banquet, my wife's younger brother threw a glass of red wine straight into my face. The whole room burst into laughter, as if they'd just watched some cheap comedy. I turned to my wife, hoping for a glance, a hand, a word of protection, but she only tilted her head and whispered, "Don't make a scene." The cold wine soaked into my collar, dripped down my skin. But that wasn't what cut me. What cut me was the cruel indifference in her eyes. The eyes of the woman who once swore she'd hold my hand for life. I froze. Pause. Laughter stabbed at my ears like blades. Crystal glasses sparkled under golden lights. But to me, everything went dark. I could hear my heartbeat, pounding like war drums, announcing an ending I had refused to face. And in that moment, the truth hit me. I never belonged in this room. I never truly had a place beside her. And now her silence confirmed it all. My hand clenched the edge of the table. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw the glass back, to smash everything in sight. But another part felt only emptiness. So deep, I no longer had the strength to be angry. Because what's left to be angry about? When the only person you hope will stand with you chooses to look away? My white shirt slowly turned red, as if someone had cut through my skin. I touched my chest. My fingers brushed against the cold wedding ring. That little circle of metal once meant trust, a promise, a family. Now it was just a chain, locking me into a dinner full of fake smiles and hollow laughter. I took a deep breath. The sharp stench of wine burned my throat. Around me, people laughed, raised their glasses, as if I were tonight's entertainment. But inside, a voice rose, steady, unshakable. Enough. Tonight isn't just another dinner. This is the end. I knew what I was about to do. Would silence the laughter, freeze the room, and push me onto a path with no way back. My name is Andrew Miller, 33 years old. Just an ordinary IT engineer. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. Every morning, my dad slid under a car, hands covered in grease. My mom stood behind the checkout counter at the local grocery store. We never had much, but our dinners were always filled with laughter. I used to believe, if love was enough, poverty wouldn't matter. After college, I moved to the city. My first apartment was half the size of my wife's living room now. In summer, the fan roared all day, but the heat never left. In winter, the old heater screeched through the night. I lived on instant coffee, cheap noodles, and endless nights hunched over a second-hand laptop with peeling paint. But I didn't complain. I thought, this is the road everyone has to walk to grow up. Then I met Emma at a tech seminar. She sat down next to me, in a simple, light blue dress. But her face was so bright, I couldn't look anywhere else. We talked about coding, about the dreams we had as kids, even about the best pizza in town. By the time the night ended, I still had 1,000 things left I wanted to tell her. Emma came from another world. Her parents owned properties all over the city. The first time I brought her to my tiny apartment, I braced myself for the look of judgment. But instead she smiled, sat on my shaky wooden chair, and said, "I like this place. It feels like you, real and simple." We dated for over a year. Then we got married. The wedding was at a 5-star hotel. I stepped out of my beat-up sedan. Her family pulled up in a long line of limousines. I remember standing at the glass doors, checking my only suit, worn shoulders, loose buttons. I told myself, doesn't matter. Today isn't about the suit. It's about Emma. That day, holding her hand, I believed love alone would bridge every gap. I was wrong. The first years of marriage, I gave it everything. Overtime, side projects, anything to earn more. So she'd never compare me with anyone else. I bought a new suit, paid off in 3 months. Took her out to dinner on short trips. I thought, if I cared enough, she would always feel happy. But slowly, the distance showed. Emma stopped wanting dinners in our small kitchen. She often said, "There's a family party tonight. Get dressed, come with me." Those dinners became a nightmare. I sat at the long table, listening to them talk about stocks, real estate, vacations in Europe. When I shared about a new software project, they smiled politely, then turned right back to how the market's on fire. I looked at Emma, hoping for a glance of support. Instead, she shook her head slightly, placed her hand on my leg under the table and whispered, "Don't say more." I told myself, she just wanted to keep the peace. But inside, a scar was already carved. One night, I came home late. The dinner table was cold. On it, a small note. "I went out with my family. Don't wait." I loosened my tie, sat alone at that empty table. The ticking clock on the wall hammered the truth. I was no longer her first choice. Day by day, those little things piled up. The relatives' jokes, the judging stares, Emma's silence. I began to wonder, am I even in the right place? Once I overheard her mother on the phone. Emma's really kind. Not everyone could put up with living with a man like that. She didn't know I was standing behind the door. I swallowed those words, but they stuck in me like a thorn I could never pull out. When I walked back into the living room, I smiled at her. But deep down, I knew one day that sentence would come back to haunt me. At work, I made progress. Got raises, earned trust. I thought, if I succeed enough, Emma's family will respect me. But the truth is, no paycheck of mine could ever match one land deal they signed in an afternoon. Slowly, I stopped hoping for their recognition. All I wished was that Emma would see my effort. But the hardest part? She chose silence. Silence when I was mocked. Silence when I was compared. Silence when all I needed was one small word in my defense. Many nights, sitting in her family's living room, I felt like decoration. Something on the side, there, but not needed. They laughed, they talked, they planned. I held a glass of soda in my hand, quiet in the corner, listening to their voices echo through the room, unable to belong. Sometimes I asked myself, if I vanished tomorrow, would they even notice? And worse, if I vanished, would Emma even look for me? That question hung over me, unanswered. Until that night. The night Emma's brother threw a glass of red wine into my face. That night, I finally had my answer. People think a marriage breaks apart because of one big event. But with Emma and me, it wasn't loud like that. It started with tiny cracks, little things that seemed harmless, until they added up, and the wall shattered beyond repair. When I turned 32, I came home after a long day at work, still holding on to a small, foolish hope. I pictured opening the door, lights on, a cake on the table, Emma smiling, like every year before. But when I flipped the switch, darkness. On the table, just a note. I'm out at a family party. Don't wait. I froze. Fast food bag still in my hand. The room so quiet, I could hear the clock ticking. I opened the small cake I bought for myself, lit a candle, and sang happy birthday, alone. The flame flickered weak. The smoke lingered in the air as I blew it out. That lonely light was me, fragile and forgotten. I told myself, it's fine. Maybe she just forgot. Tomorrow will be different. But the next morning, clearing the table, I saw the melted wax pooled on the plate. And I knew she hadn't forgotten. She had simply chosen to be somewhere else. Emma's family dinners became torture. I sat at long white tables, listening to stocks, real estate, yachts. I tried to share about a software project my company had just launched. But before I finished, someone cut me off. Speaking of projects, last week we signed a deal for a new tower. $25 million. What you said sounds so small. Laughter roared around the table. Emma laughed too. She didn't defend me. I went silent, sipped my orange juice, my throat dry. On the way home, I gathered my courage. Didn't you think they went too far? Emma sighed. You're too sensitive. Don't let it bother you. But it did bother me, because all I needed was one word from her. And it never came. One Friday night, I came home late, a bouquet in my hand. I wanted to surprise her. But the apartment was empty. And on the table, again, the note. Out with family, don't wait. I sat there, flowers in my hand, watching them wilt. When Emma came home past midnight, still glowing with perfume and glitter, I asked, do you ever think about having dinner with me? She frowned. You're overreacting. It's just a dinner. But you've missed too many dinners already. You know how much I value my family. And what about me? Do you value me? That was our first big fight. Emma cried, called me selfish. And I sat there, numb, asking myself, am I selfish? Or do I just want to matter in this family? The next morning, the dead flowers lay in the trash. I looked at them, and it felt like looking at myself. That winter, Emma brought me to their year-end party. I wore my only suit, dry cleaned so many times the shoulders had worn thin. Surrounded by men in tailored, shining suits, I felt like an outsider. Her brother looked me up and down, smirked. Loyal husband, huh? That suit's been with you since college, hasn't it? Laughter again. I gripped my glass tight, forced a smile. Emma stood beside me, but only gave a weak laugh. and change the subject. That night, back home, I hung my suit in the closet, across from her row of luxury dresses. I stared at it for a long time and whispered, "It's not the suit's fault. The fault is, I was never accepted here." One evening, walking past her family's mansion, I overheard her mother on the phone. "Emma's really kind. She puts up with living with someone like Andrew, but she deserves better." I froze, wanted to storm in, to fight back. But I didn't. I turned, drove back to our apartment in silence. That night, I lay awake till morning, her words echoing in my head. "Jibam. She deserves better." And I asked myself, then who do I deserve? I thought effort could fix everything. I signed up for project management classes, studied late nights, coffee half drunk, laptop glowing at 2 a.m., emails never stopping, all to prove I was worthy. When I got a bonus, I bought Emma a white gold necklace. She smiled and said, "You didn't need to. I just want you to be stable." But that smile wasn't the smile I once knew, and I realized money would never close the gap between us. Another time, I asked her to have dinner, just the two of us, to relive the simple nights we once had. Emma looked at me, cold, honest. "You know I can't say no to them. Don't make me choose." Her words cut deep, because in her list of priorities, I wasn't first. I wasn't even close. As time passed, her silence grew. When I was mocked, silence. When I was belittled, silence. When I needed her voice, silence. And it was that silence, more than any insult, that killed our marriage. It made me feel like I was fading away. I tried to endure. I tried to believe love alone could carry us. But that night, at the spring banquet, when her brother raised his glass of red wine, eyes full of challenge, I knew that glass wouldn't just stain my shirt. It would shatter everything I had tried to build in 3 years of marriage. They say marriage doesn't break with one strike. It breaks with 100 little cuts, and each cut runs deeper, until even the lightest touch makes you bleed. One spring evening, I was leaving work when my phone lit up. Emma's texts filled the screen. "Come to the house now. They're asking. Don't embarrass me." That was it. "No, I miss you." "No, did you eat yet?" Just orders. Cold. Short. I hit the gas, my heart racing. When I walked into the banquet hall, chandeliers glared down on suits and glittering gowns. Emma came over, smiling for the crowd, linking her arm through mine. She whispered, "You're late. Dad asked twice already." I looked around, and it hit me. I wasn't called here to be with her. I was called to complete the picture. At dinner, her father tapped his glass, smiled that half smile. "Andrew, a man should sacrifice for family. My daughter chose you, so make sure she never suffers." Laughter rose around the table. I forced a smile, but inside, the words burned. "Suffer? Who's the one suffering here?" Emma sat next to me, staring at her plate. Not a word. During dessert, her brother leaned back, smirking. "My sister's a saint. Marrying a plain tea guy? That's charity work." The table erupted in laughter. I set my spoon down, hands on the table, ready to stand. But Emma grabbed my wrist. Her whisper cut deeper than the mockery. "Don't, just apologize. End it." Apologize? Me, the one insulted, apologize? My hand shook. Drops spilled from my glass, like pieces of my pride breaking apart. "I'm sorry." The words came out strangled. The table roared with laughter, like they'd just watched a show. On the drive home, silence. Her words echoing in my head. "Just apologize. End it." A few days later, I asked her out. No banquets. No crowd. Just a small Italian place. Scratched wooden tables. Dim lights. I wanted to remember what was once ours. "Do you remember?" I asked. "When we first met, we dreamed of driving down Route 66. Cheap motels, cheap donuts, just us." Emma smiled faintly. "Things are different now, Andrew. We're not broke students anymore." I held her hand. "I don't need much. Just you, not the parties." She pulled away, eyes steady. "You don't understand. Family is everything. Don't make me choose." That was the second time I heard it, and this time, it felt like a sentence. Some nights I woke at 3 a.m., the bed beside me empty. I texted, "Are you coming home?" Screen lit up. Scene ID. Scene? Nothing more. I sat in the kitchen, cold water in my hand. Clock reading 3:07. Street light pouring through the window. My heart beat heavy in the silence. The next morning, I opened the closet. My old suit hung alone, swallowed by her row of designer dresses. I touched its frayed shoulder and thought, this suit might be the only thing still loyal to me in this house. Another night, at dinner, her brother sneered again, called me a leech. I shot up from my chair. I am not a leech. The room froze. Her father tapped his glass. Andrew, don't be so sensitive. I turned to Emma, waiting, hoping, but she just shook her head, mouth barely moving. Don't. My shoulders collapsed. I sat back down, a clown who knew his place. When the guests drifted away, Emma pulled me into the hallway, her voice sharp. Why did you make a scene? You always embarrass me. My voice cracked. Embarrass you for standing up for myself? She turned away. You don't get it. Every time you react, I'm left cleaning up. They say I chose wrong. I stared at her back, feeling myself disappear. In my own marriage, I thought I'd grown used to the silence. I thought I could endure a little longer, but I was wrong. Because one spring night, when her brother splashed red wine across my face, and laughter filled the room, and Emma stayed silent, I knew my marriage had died long before I stood up from that table. I used to think the worst pain was being humiliated in public. But no, the worst pain is when you turn to the one person you believe will defend you, and they choose silence. Emma's family mansion blazed with light, like a palace. I wore my old suit, pressed flat, but the frayed shoulders still showed. In the mirror, I told myself, just one more night, smile, stay quiet, go home. In the long dining hall, knives clinked, glasses chimed. I sat near the end of the table, not far enough to be forgotten, not close enough to be heard. Emma sat beside me, her smile glowing, her eyes fixed on her family. I stayed silent, watching. Her brother stood by the wine bar, swirling a glass under the light, face full of mischief. Andrew, he called out. The table fell quiet. What do you think of this red? Probably rare for an IT guy like you, huh? Scattered laughter. I gripped the table edge, my voice low. Wine is just wine. What matters is who drinks it. Eyebrows raised. Her brother chuckled, shook his head. Oh yeah? Then let me give you a closer look. Without warning, he threw the glass in my face. Cold, sharp, red liquid splashing my eyes, running down my cheek, seeping into my shirt. The bitter stench of wine, smelling like blood. The room exploded in laughter. Some clapped, some covered their mouths. No one stopped it. I froze, the world spinning, only the wet sting on my skin, and the roar of laughter in my ears. I turned to Emma. I waited. Just one word. Enough. Respect my husband. But she lowered her gaze, straightened a napkin fold, lips pressed tight, eyes on nothing. 1 second. 2. 5. Still silence. The laughter scraped at me like glass on stone. I felt my skin cut open by every sound. In anger, I grabbed my water glass, ready to throw it back. My hand shook, water sloshing over the rim. And then, my eyes met hers, not pleading, not angry, just cold, telling me without words, don't ruin the party. I let go. Set the glass down. The clink echoed like a verdict. Drops splattered the white cloth, like a wound bleeding out. I knew if I threw it, I'd be the crazy one, and Emma would never stand with me. Her father laughed awkwardly, raising his glass. Now, just a joke. Don't be so sensitive, Andrew. A joke? I wiped my face. The napkin smeared red. A joke that strips a man of his pride? I looked around. Faces laughing, some shaking their heads, some entertained, like they'd bought tickets to a show. A circus. And I was the clown. You won't say anything? I asked Emma. My voice breaking. She looked up, eyes distant. Andrew, don't make this bigger than it is. They were just joking. I laughed. Empty. Hollow. In that moment, I understood. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just a name. A placeholder in their family portrait. The laughter swelled again. Glasses clinked. The conversation moved on. As if nothing had happened. I stood. My chair scraped. The room fell silent, waiting. Part of me wanted to scream, to smash the glass. But another part was too tired. I'm sorry, I heard myself say. Cold, flat. For disturbing your dinner. The table erupted again. They laughed louder, as if that was the perfect ending. Her brother slapped my shoulder. That's right, all in good fun. I looked at Emma one last time. She stayed silent. I walked out. The hallway stretched like a tunnel. Yellow lights casting my shadow long and thin. Each step, My shoes squelched with spilled wine. Outside, drizzle fell. I tilted my head back, let the rain mix with the wine on my skin. In the car mirror, I saw my face streaked red. Wine smeared like dried blood. I laughed, but my throat burned. The phone buzzed. A message from Emma. "You shouldn't have walked out like that." I was so embarrassed. I stared at the screen. "No, I'm sorry. No, I'm here for you. Just I was embarrassed." I laughed again, and the tears came on their own. Her concern wasn't my humiliation. It was her pride. Her face in front of them. I drove aimlessly through the night, the city glowing, my heart dark, and I whispered to myself, that glass didn't just stain my shirt. It killed this marriage. I pulled over, staring into the darkness, and for the first time, one thought flickered across my mind. Maybe I have to leave. I came home near dawn. Emma was already back, lying with her back to me. I stood there for a long time, staring at that back, just a few feet away, yet it felt like an ocean between us. In the morning, she was up first, made breakfast, didn't look at me, just asked, "Are you going to work?" I wanted to ask, "Did you see what happened last night? Did you even think of me?" But the words stuck. I only said, "We need to talk." She sighed, set the bowl on the table. The sound sharp, brittle. "Again, Andrew? Don't you ever get tired?" I met her eyes. "Last night, you stayed silent." She turned away, voice flat. "You're too sensitive. It was just a joke." I laughed bitterly. "A joke that throws a glass of wine in my face. And you say nothing?" Emma pressed her lips together, then murmured, "If you had reacted, you would have looked pathetic." Her words cut deeper. So in her eyes, I was already pathetic. That day, I still went to work. Coworkers asked, "You okay? You don't look so good." I smiled. "I'm fine." At lunch, I sat alone in the cafeteria. Around me, laughter and chatter. I saw one man take a call from his wife. His face lit up. "Yeah, I'll be home for dinner." I forced a smile and asked myself, when was the last time Emma called me? Just to check in. I couldn't remember. That evening, I drove past the park. A couple sat on a bench, hands intertwined. No words. Just one look, and it was enough. I stared and wondered. I had that with Emma once. But when did it disappear? In the car window, I saw my reflection. A hollow face, empty eyes. I realized it wasn't money I lacked. Not parties, not status. All I wanted was a simple hand to hold. And that was gone. That night, I told her, "Emma, sit down. We need a real talk." She crossed her arms, eyes guarded. "What now?" "I just want to know, do you still see me as your husband?" She smirked. "Don't be ridiculous. I'm serious. In your list of priorities, where am I? After family? After the parties? After their cruel jokes?" She stayed quiet for a long moment, then sighed. "You know, family is everything to me. You'll never compare." Her words dropped like a verdict. I nodded, leaned back, laughed bitterly. "So that's it." "I tried," I said, voice breaking. "I worked myself raw, took every insult. But you never stood with me. You chose silence. You chose to leave me alone." Her eyes glistened. Her lips trembled. I waited. But then she turned away, whispered, "You don't understand." 4 words. No apology. No plea. Maybe there was still a flicker of doubt in her. But it wasn't enough to save us. That night, I didn't sleep. I packed my bags, the sound of the zipper scraping through silence. Emma lay turned away. No questions. No protest. Only a faint sigh. Regret too late. And still, silence. I slipped off my wedding ring, set it on the nightstand, the cold metal glinting under the yellow lamp. I stared at it, then whispered, "I waited for you to say just one thing. I'm here, you're not alone." But you never did. It's time I stop waiting. I pulled my suitcase to the door. The wheels rattled down the hall. Before I left, I turned back, spoke one last line. "Emma, silence can be crueler than 1,000 insults." I closed the door. No footsteps followed, only silence, loud enough that I never wanted to hear it again. I stepped into the street, rain falling soft, streetlights stretching my shadow along the pavement. I looked up at the gray sky and whispered, "I don't know what tomorrow holds, but tonight, I lost the one person who was once my whole world." The suitcase rolled on, and I knew this was only the beginning of another journey. I left that apartment with nothing but a suitcase. The city still glowed with lights, but but I felt I was walking through my own darkness. Streetlights stretched my shadow long across the pavement, like a traveler, leaving behind a journey that had finally ended. I rented a small room on the edge of town. Plain, a narrow bed, an old wooden desk, a window looking out over low rooftops. In the morning, sunlight slipped through the blinds in thin lines. I woke to no footsteps, no coffee brewing, empty, but quiet. The first day, the emptiness consumed me, but slowly. Each day felt lighter. No more flinching when the phone buzzed. No more fake smiles under their ridicule. No more waiting for a defense from someone who had chosen silence. At work, I carried on. Coworkers asked, "You okay?" I smiled. "I'm fine." But deep down, I knew. I was learning to walk again, like a child, after a hard fall. One afternoon, I passed the park. A young couple sat on a bench, hands intertwined. They laughed without effort. I watched from a distance, then walked on. My heart twinged, but there was no envy. I only thought, at least once, I had afternoons like that with Emma. And that's enough to know I once loved for real. At night, memories returned. The lonely birthday cake, the wilted flowers in the trash, the red wine thrown in my face. Scenes looping like an old film. I couldn't stop them. But this time, I didn't run. I sat still, breathed, let them pass, like rain finally fading. I started keeping a journal, not to remember Emma, but to remember myself, the part I had buried in that marriage. One night, as I wrote, my phone buzzed. It was an old message I had forgotten to delete. "Don't wait for me. I'll be late." Short. Empty. I stared at it, felt a sharp sting in my chest, then smiled sadly, and erased it. For the first time, I chose to erase. I no longer blamed Emma. She had her reasons, her choices. But I had mine too. Not to let someone else's silence define my worth. I once feared losing her. Now I knew, worse than losing her, was losing myself in endless silence. Another evening, I sat on a park bench, watching the sky turn orange. I wrote in my journal, "Some marriages don't die from betrayal of the body, but betrayal of the spirit. When silence becomes the only answer, love is already gone." I closed the book, took a long breath. The breeze carried children's laughter, and my heartbeat settled. I wasn't fully at peace yet, but I had started walking again. That night, before sleep, I whispered, "Maybe I was never afraid of losing you. I was only afraid of realizing I had lost myself for too long." I closed my eyes. Darkness wrapped around me. Peace came. But I knew tomorrow memories might return. I didn't know how long that peace would last. All I knew was, at least tonight, I slept as a man no longer bound.